Hi, this is Chris from the Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from Political Voices Network.
Whether it's judges, prosecutors, whatever, like it just like that we feel like there's nobody can stop this guy. And you talked about this fundraiser. You retweeted the headline: "The German industrialists who aided and abetted the Nazi regime, the ghosts of the Third Reich still haunt many German businesses." You said this is exactly how the wealthy donors who raised millions for Trump on Saturday should be viewed, right? They're just their own self-interest.
I wrote about it in my Substack that these people, these less than 100, they gave between $250,000 to $800,000 each to attend this event. John Paulson's house, a big hedge fund wealthy guy, that they went there to bankroll Donald Trump. And I reminded people that Hitler, when he came to power right before the first and last election as chancellor in Nazi Germany, he brought the German industrialists together, said, "I need your money." And he told them point blank, in a democracy, you're not going to do well. But in the dictatorship that I have in mind, you will do well. And some of those business people were on board with it. And some of them later were tried at Nuremberg for funding the Hitler war machine. And those people who went to that fundraiser and gave money, they're not the people with a high school education. Yeah. They're not con. They get it. They understand Trump attempted a coup. They understand January 6th. They understand he's pardoning the terrorists. And they're on board with it. And that's what's so frightening. They are smart enough to know it, and they're on board with it.
You said it. They're traitors. You said they're not MAGA morons who Trump conned. They 100% know that Trump attempted a coup and incited the January 6th attack. They've chosen helping their bottom line over protecting our democracy. I mean, I was reading a historian saying, they could have deported Hitler, to Austria, whatever, but they didn't want to, inflame his base, or they don't want to be fair, both sides. And I mean, just feels like where we are now, that nobody knows what to do or how to stop him.
Are you suggesting we can deport Donald Trump? Because I'm on board for that.
Let's do it.
I wish there was a way.
I was saying I hope he looks into the eclipse and then he has to get a dog, and it's Commander, Biden's dog.
Your dog?
What?
Your dog leads him to the pier. I'm like, where's Donald? Well, the dog stopped short and Donald kept walking. And look, this is the frustration you sense, I sense, I'm sure, my listeners sense. It's 3 years and 3 months since January 6th, and Donald Trump is still free. There is no first world nation that is sincere about protecting their democracy that would allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And sadly, United States of America has allowed this to happen. And he's been able to game the system through spending $70, $80 million in legal fees. And we can go back in time. DOJ waited about a year to look at Donald Trump, and that's the problem.
Oh, I've set sail with you. I've left Jody on the Defending Merrick Garland mainland, and you and me and Ellie Mistal, we're like on the little ice the flow.
Oh, ice
like
flow.
Herbie, he's Herbie the dentist. I'm Rudolph. You must I think of you all the time, the evolution of this issue, and it's an inflection point, this attack on the World Kitchen workers. And I was saying, I feel like we read I don't know, where was that, Jody? It was a great piece, but Justin, you've talked about this before, just about Netanyahu, and what a trap. He is turning the entire world against Israel. And go ahead, yeah.
I hope he stares into the sun during the eclipse. Is that wrong for me to say?
No.
I'm not sure if that's right or wrong. Look, he's never been a good guy. He's not gotten the attention that he's deserved for a long time in terms of being a bad guy, working against Democratic presidents, against President Obama. He was very infamously against President Obama. And since 2015, he's said when running for prime minister, there'd never be a Palestinian state. And this is a guy who helped prop up Hamas for all these years, and we know this from objective reporting. It's not me, but
Dean, can I ask you a dumb
state if Hamas is there? So that's what he was doing.
Can I ask you a dumb question?
Sure.
I don't think I understand the politics there. Why has Netanyahu been propping up Hamas? I mean,
according to the former prime minister Ehud Barak, who wrote an article about it, was on CNN and Israeli think tanks. What Netanyahu did was allow funding to go to Hamas directly. Yeah. Because then he could say, hey, I can't make a peace deal with the Palestinians. Stop saying you want a Palestinian state when Gaza is controlled by Hamas. And it let him not talk about a Palestinian state. Also, he pivoted to Iran the whole time, again, not to talk about the Palestinian state issue. But that was the big thing. Ehud Barak, again, a former prime minister, said that's why Netanyahu allotted funding and allowed Hamas to exist in the form never expected on October 7th, but understanding they're going to fire missiles here and there. But he was fine with it because it let him have an excuse not to talk about the real issue which was Palestinian self-determination. So here's where we are, and I'm hoping there'll be elections in the fall there. I'm not sure, but I'm getting a sense there might be.
Yeah, that's what we were asking. Are they like raves? Are they like pop-up, concert? Chris Rock doing a set at midnight?
Pop-up shops.
Like, how do we know when it's going to happen?
Not good. It's here's where we are.
But it's his evil and his incompetence, Dean. October 7th happened on his watch. That he's too busy in the West Bank or whatever. It went on for hours. I mean, I can't imagine they haven't thrown him out on his ear yet. But anyway, I'm glad that we're at the point, however we got here, where Nancy Pelosi and others are saying to Biden, you've got to condition aid. Because and this is not a real investigation, right? I mean, the IDF cannot investigate themselves.
No, and that's what Chef Jose Andres said. It's not credible having. Now, I think they did some sort of investigation, and they said, okay, we made mistakes, and that's true. But I think what's so jarring is that we learned about the rules of engagement that we believed that I thought were true. Now we know it's true. They suspected one person in one of the three cars was a militant, and they killed everyone in three cars. Yeah. And even though it was coordinated with the Israeli military. So you get a sense when Palestinians are saying they're killing civilians, and people are like, well, blah, 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 Hamas was in the area. That's what they'll say all the time. You're like, oh, maybe Hamas wasn't in the area. Maybe Israel didn't care. They were dropping 2,000-pound bombs. They dropped over 500, which killed people a quarter mile away. We all get a sense now, this has gone horrifically wrong. And that's why a Gallup poll before last week's killing, only 36% of Americans supported the military action by Israel. And of Democrats, 18%. And of independents, less than 30%. Yeah. So you're seeing we're only down to about 60% Republicans, keeping that number in the 30s, or would be in the teens. And look, I hope a ceasefire. They're negotiating right now in Cairo. There were some reports a short time ago, some positive developments. We'll see what happens. I hope there could be one. I hope the hostages can be released. Yeah. This war can end, a rebuilding, and I would love to see new leadership for the Palestinians in Gaza and new leadership for the Israelis in Israel. But that's up to them in Israel.
Yeah, interesting you brought up Obama. I mean, I always say this, Dean, it's all one story, isn't it? I mean, that's when, Netanyahu really started to align with Republicans here. I mean, there's, Jared apparently, and Trump are conducting sort of a shadow presidency, talking to Netanyahu and MBS, behind Biden's back. But I think that you're right. Look at what's going on right now that's scary about Iran, and if this war widens.
Sure.
Netanyahu came to speak against Obama's Iran deal, behind Obama's back, the Republicans invited him. And so now here we are, right? I mean, it's, and when Trump says, oh, this wouldn't happen on my watch, it's like, really? Your buddy Putin was funding and training Hamas. Really? You were going to tell him not to?
No, you don't remember, Stephanie, but during Trump's 4 years, America was perfect.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I remember.
It was everything. All my dreams came true. It was the greatest 4 years of my life.
I remember that.
But it was like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And Tinkerbell flew over us and made me 21 years old again. It was great. I was Peter Pan all over. But now, what a horrific time. Everything was. Trump's a joke. We know he's a dangerous, dangerous dictator. So that's a whole different story. When I look back, I always regretted that during Obama, there wasn't a moderate to progressive prime minister in Israel, not Netanyahu, because I really think perhaps with President Obama, there could have been really laying the groundwork for a Palestinian state, and we would be on some form. If it was a federation, if it was two states, it was an EU scenario, whatever.
And at least he tried.
Netanyahu said no, right? Netanyahu said no to everything.
Yes, and at least he tried to get them to stop building settlements and get to an actual two-state solution. And it's just we're so far from that.
2 weeks ago, by the way, in the West Bank, under Smotrich, that's his last name, the head of like the Ministry of Land Grabbing, we can call it, announced the biggest. He literally announced the biggest grabbing of the land in the West Bank. The Palestinians only have about 20% of the land in the West Bank under their exclusive control, because there's sector A, B, and C. Not to get too detailed, but after the Oslo Accord, they have that. They took the biggest chunk of land since 1993, the Oslo Accord, 2 weeks ago. During this, nothing's going on in the West Bank, but there is the dream of people like Smotrich and another guy named Ben Gvir, who President Biden's talked about, the greater Israel vision, an Israel from the sea, from the river to the sea. Palestinians leave, self-deport, voluntary transfer. That's what they talk about, and build more settlements that are exclusive for Israelis, not for Palestinians. So this is from both sides, and I'm glad the world's waking up. It's been horrific time. And maybe now, if the world views, if every Americans especially view Palestinians as human beings, then we can push our elected officials to push for a just settlement.
Thank you.
Where neither Israelis
as
nor
you say,
Palestinian mothers have to
clear
worry.
Gaza Strip. It's like, yeah, so Jared can build waterfront condos. I mean, do you understand how? I mean, for anyone that cares about the Palestinian cause, it will be 11 billion times worse under Trump. He will that's why Netanyahu's desperate to get Trump back in. I mean, when he says, "Oh, they need to finish it up," Israel. I mean, he means, I don't know, kill 30,000 more if you want. Like
He doesn't care.
It's anyway.
What did Trump say at his fundraiser over the weekend? I want more of the white immigrants from Norway and Denmark. Once again, repeating it, and that's all they're reporting right now. Trump is a white supremacist. This is not an attack on the guy. He is proud to be a white supremacist, and his base loves him for being a white supremacist. So when he says, "Why can't we have more people from Switzerland," which he said over the weekend, and Norway and Denmark, that's what his base wants, and that's who he is. Yeah. So the brown people in the Middle East, he doesn't care about them. He doesn't care. I don't think he cares about Israelis or American Jews. He smeared them with vile lies, saying you hate yourselves and your religion if you don't support me. Well, he's a despicable, irredeemable barely human being.
Yeah, and I said last week, and you tweeted about this thing, that it's beginning to feel like Hitler to me.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.